After long debate and a drama-filled journey, including a walkout by Democrats, the Texas legislature has approved congressional redistricting. They voted early Saturday morning for new maps that add 5 strongly Republican-leaning districts. It's legal, but still unusual to redraw maps in the middle of the decade versus following the new census every 10 years. For insight on redistricting, we are joined by Dr. Sean Theriault, University Distinguished Teaching Professor at the University of Texas. He teaches classes on party polarization and congressional elections. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
So first, let's talk about population shifts. Population shifts, they're always underway. So why is redistricting typically done every 10 years?
Yeah, that's right. So we have to go back to the Constitution. So the Constitution says every 10 years there has to be a census. And so when there's a census, then states will go through what's called reapportionment. So that means that Texas, because it's gaining population at a higher rate than the rest of the states, gains seats in the House of Representatives. And then other states like New York or Pennsylvania or Michigan or Illinois lose seats. And so once those seats are given to the states, then the states are responsible for redistricting the lines so that all the districts within that state have the same number of people living in them.
And the crux of the debate in the legislature centered around 2 positions this time. Republicans say the new districts promote partisan political goals, while Democrats say the plan constitutes illegal racial discrimination. Are these 2 positions mutually exclusive? Could it be both?
Yeah, it could be both. And what's really interesting here is, right, the reason the Republicans give that line is because Democrats aren't a protected class, which means they don't get extra guarantees in the Constitution or in the laws of the United States, right? It's a political party. And the reason the Democrats are using the argument that they're using is because Hispanics and African Americans are a protected class, which means there has to be a higher level of scrutiny for government activity with regard to them. And so if it's a race argument, then the courts can say you're violating the laws and these maps need to be struck down. But if you're merely making a map that's bad for Democrats, like that's fine according to the courts, right? They're not going to get into those kinds of debates.
And drawing district lines, it's an arcane process, but it matters greatly when it comes to actual political power. And it looks like Texas has touched off a national redistricting battle as we see action and threats from places like California, New York, Missouri, and other states, and a lot of now antics on social media. How do you think this plays out?
Yeah, so this plays out, right? Like, I think it's another one of these things that we used to not do, right? We used to not go through mid-decade redistricting. And then a couple of decades ago, when there would be a partisan switch in the state, then there might be redistricting, right? We experienced that in Texas in the early 2000s. But what we're seeing now, it's unique this time because it was the Republicans that drew these lines 2 years ago and put this map into place. And so it's their plan. But then, right, we have a midterm election that's coming up, and the Republicans would like to bank a couple more seats out of Texas, and so they're going to change the maps that they drew just a couple of years ago. And so that's new. And so, right, so then California says, well, if you're going to do that, Texas, then we're going to do this. And then Missouri says, well, California, if you're going to do that, then we're going to do that. And then you have this cascading effect. And it just means another one of those norms that we used to abide by in American politics is now left on the wayside because parties want to achieve some type of advantage for their party.
It's certainly been an interesting political cycle this time. Even other countries I've seen on social media are commenting, what is going on in the United States? States are at war. Do you see any risk for Texas Republicans in this? Any chance they have sliced their majority too thinly in some districts?
Maybe. Right? So the Republicans largely drew their plan based on the voters in the 2024 election. Of course, we know in Texas, it was really good for Donald Trump and the Republicans. And so, right, they gave themselves a little bit of a cushion, right? A lot of these new districts are +8 Republican, +10 Republican. And you'd think that that would be enough. But midterm elections are notoriously bad for the president's party. And so on average, they'll lose about 24 seats in a midterm election. And so if Donald Trump's approval rating, which is now in the low 40s right now, if that slips down into the high 30s, then you might start seeing some of those +6, +8 districts being in play. And then, of course, it comes down to who the parties nominate to be their candidate in those elections. And so if the Democrats put forward a really good candidate, the Republicans don't put forward such a good candidate, and it's a +8 Republican district, and Donald Trump's approval is going down, then those districts are going to be in play.
Well, I know this can be kind of confusing at times, so thank you so much for breaking this down. This is going to be something I think the whole nation will be watching the fallout of. Dr. Sean Theriault, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave us a comment below to let us know your thoughts on this video. And don't forget, you can watch full episodes of Austin Insight for free in the PBS app.